A few accessibility checks before we begin. This video will have subtitles added. Any important images, videos, or texts will be described. There will be no flashing lights. There will be no jump scares, no loud noises, no graphic violence. This video is not meant for children 13 and under, but much like Avatar, it is a video filled with peaceful content.
Water, earth, fire, air.
15 years ago, on February 21st, 2005, Avatar: The Last Airbender premiered on Nickelodeon. The world has changed a lot since then. I have changed a lot since then. I watched the show when it first premiered. I remember seeing various commercials leading up to the show.
Their biggest challenge is a 12-year-old boy
Looking for me?
explore the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender, premiering Monday, February 21st at 7/6 Central on Nickelodeon.
I remember bits of the pilot. Mostly, I remember the night the show premiered. At the time, I was 10 years old and still able to walk. My parents had a small box television in their bedroom, so I climbed upstairs. I watched The Boy in the Iceberg and The Avatar Returns. I was so blown away that I raced back downstairs and forced my family to re-watch the show on Nick 2. Over the years, my father, brother, and I watched the episodes, played the video games, bought the toys, and we discussed the characters, the animation, the music, the philosophies, and the representation. I have always been disabled, but when I was 12, I began to permanently use a wheelchair. By that time, the show was in the middle of Book 2 and had already incredible disability representation. I have made post after post after post, so many posts, talking about the representation and how much it's meant to me. But since it's the 15th anniversary, I wanted to put all of my thoughts into one place. I created a new channel in the process, because if people like the video and are interested in more, I would love to talk about other topics related to disability and representation. For example, I would love to talk about Korra, who is disabled despite what some people think. For now though, I'll stick to the original Avatar. At the time of recording this video, I don't have any professional equipment, I don't have any subscribers, I don't even have a logo. I'm just a woman who loves Avatar and wants to talk about its Flameo disability representation. With that said, this video will be divided into 3 sections. 1. The disabled characters in Avatar. 2. The disabling society in Avatar. And 3. The disablement in Avatar. Part 1. The disabled characters. In this case, disabled refers to the typical American usage, the impairments that these characters have. For example, my disability, my impairment, is spina bifida. Because of this disability, I use a wheelchair to move through the world, much like Teo, the boy introduced in the Northern Air Temple at the end of Book 1. I'm sure I don't need to introduce the other prominent disabled character.
Your champion, the Blind Bandit!
Let's take a moment to focus on the introductions of these characters. In the beginning of the Northern Air Temple, Aang sees people flying around and is challenged by the newly introduced Teo, who flies while sitting down. Aang flies with him, showing that they are evenly matched, though there's a great bit of foreshadowing when Aang runs up a wall and Teo remarks, "Wow, I don't think I can do that." But it's only after they land that the main characters and the audience realize that Teo uses a wheelchair. His disability isn't the main focus of his character, and that's amazing. The same can be said for Toph, who is introduced in the Book 2 episode, The Blind Bandit. Like Teo, Toph had a powerful introduction. Having spent the past few minutes watching powerful wrestlers, the focus suddenly shifts to the champion belt, the trophy given to the best wrestler. It's lifted up over this mysterious character's head, and we see the cataracts in her eyes. A wide-angle shot shows us that the greatest wrestler in the arena is a small, blind girl. Yet we know that Toph is so much more. Both of these characters are 3-dimensional. Teo gets happy, scared, angry, triumphant. When he returns in the series, he is able to fight alongside the others. He is a fully developed character who also happens to be disabled. Like Teo, Toph is a three-dimensional character, feeling so realistic that she might as well have been my sister growing up. Now, due to her heightened senses and earthbending, Toph can feel the vibrations in the ground, allowing her to sense where different people are. With that said, she is still blind. She is still disabled, despite some people's attempts to claim that she is not disabled because, and I quote, she's awesome. She's disabled and awesome. She runs away, she trains the Avatar twice, she invents a new form of bending, she becomes the greatest earthbender in the world, she saves the world, and she's disabled. Now, I want to quickly address a critique I've seen over the years, that Toph is an example of a supercrip. For those who don't know, a supercrip is a negative example of disability representation and occurs when a character's disability is completely negated by their superpowers. For example, in Shazam, Freddy goes from using a crutch to becoming a superhero who can walk unassisted. It's a horrible trope, and I would love to talk about it in another video. For now, I will say that Toph is not an example of a supercrip. Though feeling the vibrations allows her to navigate on the ground, she is still blind, and cannot navigate the world the way non-blind characters can. She can't see on the sand, on ice, in the water, in the air. She can't see paper. She is blind. Feeling the vibrations is an accommodation, just like Teo's wheelchair, but it does not negate her disability. Toph is blind. She is disabled. She is also awesome. These things can coexist, I promise. With that said, not every character agrees that Toph is awesome. This brings us to part 2, the Disabling Society. For this part, we are going to draw on the theories of the late Mike Oliver, who used a wheelchair and became one of the founders of disability studies. Specifically, Mike Oliver helped coin the phrase social model of disability, the idea that society disables people just as much, if not more, than the body does. Examples include inaccessible architecture and negative stigmas surrounding disability. Side note.
Zeus, would it be wrong to punch a child?
Peace. I promised peace. Think of it like this. If Teo, who uses a wheelchair, is unable to access the Northern Air Temple, you can either blame Teo or you can blame the architecture. If you blame the disabled person, you're, blaming a disabled person. It's mean, it's upsetting, it's avoidable. Blaming a person for their inability to access the world suggests that the person needs to change. Blaming the world suggests that the world needs to change to become more inclusive for everyone, regardless of their differences. So, in Avatar, Teo's father rebuilds the Northern Air Temple, modifying the environment to give his son access. Other parents in the show aren't as parental. In fact, Leo and Papi Beifong are truly toxic, abusive parents who neglect Toph under the guise of protecting her. To them, Toph's blindness has made her weak, fragile, incapable of doing anything. They would rather lock their daughter up in the estate than let her be a part of saving the world. Institutionalization of disabled people has been a serious issue for centuries. Whether locked away at home, in hospitals, in asylums, this process of exclusion and segregation only furthers the stigma that disabled people are other, that they do not deserve to live in the same world as everyone else. Avatar brilliantly shows this concept in one episode while not even highlighting that this is institutionalization. But it is, and Toph realizes it, eventually escaping to join Team Avatar. But think about what would have happened if Toph had been institutionalized for the rest of the series. Her parents would have protected her, sure, until their house was consumed by fire. If Toph hadn't joined Team Avatar, they would not have been able to stop Ozai. He would have destroyed the world. Ironically, and stay with me here, Ozai's plan to conquer the other nations, a plan put forth by his grandfather Sozin, is also an example of disablement in society. Which brings us to our third and final section of this episode. Now I know what you're thinking. One nation looking down on another, trying to liberate if not kill their people, seems more like xenophobia than disablement. And it is xenophobia, along with racism, classism, and every other ism and obia that exists. But I would argue it is also a form of disablement. After all, quoting Colin Barnes, the politics of disablement is about far more than disabled people. It is about challenging oppression in all of its forms. It is impossible, therefore, to confront one type of oppression without confronting them all, and of course, the cultural values that create and sustain them. Think of it like this. People who have a stigma against disabled people see disability, impairments, etc. as being not normal, as being worse, as being different in all the bad ways. In a way, this is the exact argument that the Fire Nation royal family, sans a few, have towards the rest of the world. Ozai and his ancestors before him are obsessed with this perfection, this ideology that their ways are normal, are acceptable, while everyone else needs to be changed or killed. This is disablement. Ozai completely dismisses or destroys imperfections, a trait he tried to pass down to his children. Now when you consider the disabled members of Team Avatar, Toph usually comes to mind, and she is disabled. But in a way, so is Zuko. His whole life, he struggled to be someone his father wanted him to be, but he could not live up to these expectations, displaying physical and mental attitudes that Ozai disagreed with, to the point where Ozai physically transformed him and forced him to try to become that perfect, normal Fire Nation prince. The same pressure was put onto Azula, which was why she, like her father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, is obsessed with perfection, loathing any and all mistakes or errors. Ironically, it is this strive for perfection that impairs Azula, causing her severe emotional distress, until she ends up as the opposite of a perfect Fire Nation child. Ozai's belief in being physically and mentally superior over everyone ended up costing him both of his children. Furthermore, their journey resembles the world's journey. In trying to strengthen, to liberate, to normalize the world, Ozai ends up nearly destroying it. Zuko puts it best.
100 years of fighting has left the world scarred and divided.
Luckily, Zuko knows where to turn to create a more inclusive world. The Avatar. Ironically, we as the audience can also turn to Avatar, the show, as an example of an inclusive cartoon that encompasses Flameo characters, Flameo animation, Flameo music, Flameo stories, Flameo philosophies, and Flameo representation. To close, and I think Iroh says it best.
Perfection and power are overrated. I think you are very wise to choose happiness and love.
Happy 15th anniversary to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Thank you to the cast, crew, and creators for giving us a show filled with happiness, love, and representation. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, I would love to create more. You could also check out my books, which include their own disability representation. But personally, I'm going to spend the rest of my night watching Avatar.